I'm signed up for a 70.3 10 weeks from now. I'm on a compressed timeline and I'm really busy at work. In this video, I'm going to go over my 10 by 10, 10 week, 10 hours a week, 70.3 training plan. Woke up super early this morning, like 4:30. Guess I'm just stoked to get this training plan going. So when I trained for my first Ironman Florida 2023, I trained for 22 weeks and I did like a full-fledged training plan. I kept it really simple. 3 swims, 3 bikes, 3 runs per week, and I maintained some strength training in there 3 to 4 days a week with some mobility and flexibility and all that. And I was all in. And by the time I got beyond the finish line, I was pretty burned out on triathlon and on training. So basically, I went into Louisville, I believe, a little undertrained. I had really focused on trying to push some bike power in that training plan and in my prep for Louisville. And I did hit my bike goal. And overall, I PR'd my, for the 70.3 distance at Louisville. So I was happy with the race, but I knew I was undertrained on the run. And so now, almost a year later, and I'm beginning my prep for Augusta. I want to make sure that I'm not undertrained. But looking back at Louisville, I don't think I averaged over about 7.5 hours a week. Still had a good race, and I think part of it was that I wasn't overtrained and I came in fresh and mentally I was in a good place. But I did have a really disappointing half marathon at the back half of that. And some of it was because the run course was more difficult than I anticipated, but the truth is I wasn't really prepared as well as I should have been. So my goal for Augusta is to remedy that. So here's the training plan. It's 10 weeks and I'm going to log approximately 10 hours per week. And it breaks down like this. I'm going to base all of my training on actual time invested. You'll see there aren't any distances on this training plan. Okay, so let me expand a little bit on a couple of the elements of my training plan. First of all, on my bike training, I do almost all of my bike training on an indoor smart trainer. So I do very little riding outside. I do a little bit, typically maybe just 2 or 3 sessions, specifically on my tri bike to just work on my handling to make sure I'm ready for the race. The second thing that I would want to expand on the training session that I think people would have maybe some questions about would be what I do for strength training, what kind of lifting I do, and that sort of thing. And there are some exercises, some lifts that I think work really well with triathlon training. And specifically for upper body, I think pull exercises like rows and pull-ups are really good for improving your strength and muscular endurance for the swim. Core exercises, any kind of core work, are really good for both the swim, bike, and run, for all three disciplines. And for the lower body, I think there's a couple of exercises that I think are really good. One is Bulgarian split squats, or single leg squat or lunge. I think those are really good. I always include some calf raises because I want to keep my calves and that whole Achilles calf chain. I want to try to make that as bulletproof as possible. And so those are kind of the must-haves, I think, in a strength session. And so when I do a total body lift, I'm doing all of those things, plus some more things that I want to maintain for the other goals that I have. Some of you might have a question about what a HIIT session looks like. Since I started doing some high rocks training in the off season from triathlon, I've really fallen in love with some of the movements and the functional strength training exercises that I picked up preparing for high rocks. So I try to vary my HIIT sessions a little bit. Most recently, we've added in some jump rope, but they're going to kind of rotate through a lot of these high rock style movements, and that's stuff like walking lunges, wall balls, burpees. We do mix in some running, indoor running on our True Form trainer treadmill, and we also have a row erg machine that we do some rowing on. So typically it'll be like 4 or 5 exercises that are on like 1 minute efforts with 30 seconds to a minute rest. And the total time for the workout is generally around 30 minutes. And what you'll see from a heart rate perspective is my heart rate will typically top out in kind of a zone 4, maybe even hit zone 5 occasionally. But then during my rest period, maybe it'll pull back to like a zone 3, but then bam, in the next work interval, it'll get right back up into that zone 4 zone 5 range. So yeah, that's how we do HIIT here. Okay, another priority in this training plan, and a little bit of a modification from my earlier 70.3 training plan, is I wanted to make sure I built in plenty of time for good recovery. So what you will see here is that I've got 2 hard days, intensity days on the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and then that's followed by an easy day on Monday, just a swim. And then I've got 2 volume days on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then that's followed by basically 2 easier days on Thursday, Friday, which will hopefully give me time to repair and rebuild and get ready for the intensity on the next weekend. I will do some recovery weeks. I'm going to throw a couple in. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to do it. Typically it'll be like a 3-week build and then a recovery week. And of course I'll taper the last week going into the race. But I really wanted to make sure I never did more than 2 difficult days in a row. I'm an older athlete. I think this is probably smart for all triathletes, but definitely for older athletes. And by that, I'm saying over 40. I'm actually over 50. So I think it's critical to give yourself some additional time in your training plan to recover. So the last thing I want to talk about in detail about the training plan is that improving my run is going to be a huge point of emphasis for me in this prep for Augusta. I have not put together a good run split in any of the 70.3s that I have done so far. I haven't done a lot of them. I mean, granted, I've only completed 3 70.3s, but I felt like I took a step forward in my bike prep and in my bike split. I definitely took a step forward with my time on in my last race at Ironman 70.3 Louisville last August. But I took a little bit of a step backwards on the run, and some of that was probably due to over biking and the fact that the run was a little bit more difficult than I anticipated, hillier than I thought it would be. But I really know that I did not prepare as well as I should have for the run. And so I'm going to change a few things in this training cycle. One is I think I'd held on to way too much zone 2 and slow stuff from my full Ironman training plan. And when I was training for Ironman Florida in 2023, my main emphasis was on developing the base, the engine that could cover that distance. I had some insecurity that I was overcoming because I'm not a natural endurance athlete. And what that added up to was that I spent a lot of time in kind of that zone 2 area. But I'm making a very intentional decision to do more tempo work, and I'm going to put some hill work into my tempo work. And in this training plan for Augusta, and I'm also going to do a lot more brick work so that I'm running off the bike more and running a little bit longer off the bike. So those are kind of my tweaks to my running plan that I hope are going to pay off on race day on Augusta. And so that's a look into a little bit of the detail about how I'm structuring my training for Augusta.